What's going on, golfers? If you've been looking for ways to improve your hip mobility, specifically internal rotation to improve your backswing and your downswing, well, today's your day, because we're going to go over a 3-step, easy, simple process for you to follow to improve your hip internal rotation mobility. Stay tuned. All right, what's going on, everyone? I'm Joe. I'm a physical therapist and strength coach that works specifically with golfers on improving their body so that they can play the best golf of their life. And today I'm going to go over hip mobility, in particular hip internal rotation mobility. Hip internal rotation is huge for the golf swing because we go into it into our trail side during our backswing, and then we also go into it on our lead side as we're posting on our lead leg during our follow through. A lot of times hip mobility, especially internal rotation, is limited in most amateur golfers, where most professionals usually have at least 45 degrees. Now, hip internal rotation mobility gets limited in everyday people like you and I because we are not as active and we're not getting paid to play golf, right, for the most part. So we're sitting a lot at our jobs and at home, and we lose some of that mobility in our hips, which can limit our ability to rotate in our backswing and in our downswing. If you haven't seen my video on global hip mobility and the top 3 areas golfers should look at and work on, then go ahead and check that link out above in the video now. Also, a lot of times in my experience, golfers tend to have a lot of low back pain, and usually the back is not the source of the pain. It usually tends to be in some other area, which ends up resulting in back pain. Usually the root cause of the problem happens to be hip internal rotation mobility. If you are having back pain, I also made another video on 5 great exercises for you to do. Make sure you go check that out and click that link above. But a lot of times I find that golfers end up having back pain because they have limited hip internal rotation mobility. And that because you're asking your body to rotate into your backswing and your downswing, and you're lacking that mobility in your hips, you're going to make up for it for somewhere else, and that's usually the low back. And unfortunately, the low back is not so great for rotating. It's really good for stabilizing and bending forward and backward, but not so much that rotation. So today I wanted to go over 3-step process that will help you improve your hip internal rotation mobility. The first thing that we want to do is to just try to get those muscles to relax. So if you have a tennis ball, a lacrosse ball, a foam roller works great. Even a softball will be good because we're going to be hitting some big areas. We're mainly going to hit the hip and the glute. So we're going to focus on the side of the hip and we're going to focus on the glute. So take that tennis ball, foam roller, softball, whatever you have. And what we're going to do is we're going to sit slightly sideways onto that object. And we're really going to try to work on the glute area. Now, we're really trying to find a kind of mildly to moderately uncomfortable area. Now, this doesn't have to be super painful, but it can be. And I don't want you to be in agony while you're doing this, but we are looking for some discomfort. And once you find one of those spots that's kind of really uncomfortable, we call those trigger points or muscle knots. Stay on that spot. You can go side to side, kind of roll a little bit like so. You can go up and down, but that will really start to help. Just stay on that spot for about a minute or two and to just try to get it to relax. We're going to try to get these muscles to relax because if these are tight, they're going to limit your ability to go into internal rotation and limit your ability to perform the next couple of drills. So once we're done hitting that backside, or we find a little spot there, again, you can try to go a little bit more onto the side and into the side of the hip there, and you will find probably some sore spots in here as well. You may need a tennis ball or lacrosse ball here, depending on the size of your foam roller, because this spot, it gets a little bit smaller in terms of muscular area to roll on. It's not as wide as the glute, but same thing. You want to try to find one of those sore spots and just kind of stay on that for about a minute or two. That will just kind of get it to relax a little bit. Now make sure when you're rolling that you're only rolling on muscle and kind of the meaty part and not so much on the bones. If you're rolling on the bones or a hard spot, you're not going to really get anything out of it. Now after we're done kind of getting those muscles to relax a little bit, we want to go into a hip internal rotation mobilization. Really simple. So we're going to just go into hip internal rotation. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. One that I have found that is pretty simple for most people is to get into this crab sitting position here. So you're just sitting on your butt, you're supported by your hands on your back, and you're kind of up like this. we're going to take one leg that you were just working on. So I was working on my right leg. We're going to take that right leg and we're going to go into hip internal rotation as far as you can and comfortable, and then back out. And then just go back in and come back out. You can hold for a second or two at the bottom, but it doesn't have to be long. We're just going to try to go as far as we can and come back out. Now, one key while you're doing this, make sure that you pull your foot up towards you. That will kind of help lock out the knee a little bit. Otherwise, if you let your foot lay flat and you do this a lot, you're going to start to probably irritate the inside of your knee, and that's not what we want to do. All right, so keep that foot pulled up throughout this as you're doing this still. And you can kind of change the angle too with how close you're in to your hip, so you can bring your foot out a little bit more. I would say start at about 90-degree angle with your knee and then go in. If you want to get a little bit closer, you can. It might make it a little bit easier. And then you're just going to go ahead, and I would say do this for at least about a minute or two. Just kind of going as far as you can. If you start to have any really sharp stabbing pain, stop short of that range of motion. Maybe readjust, bring your foot out a little bit and go here. But we don't want to have any sharp stabbing pains. That is not ideal. Okay, so now after about a minute or two of that, we want to actively keep that motion, because our brain doesn't know what to do with that newfound motion. If we don't work into it or use it, it's just going to go away. Okay, so we want to actively maintain that. So you can just get a couple pillows if you don't have a foam roller, but I would suggest getting into a side lying position here. Put that foam roller in between your knees, okay? And my feet are stacked on top of each other, and then I'm just going to rotate my foot so it's coming up towards the ceiling like so. And you want to go as high as you possibly can, okay? And I would say do a couple sets of 15 to 20 reps of this as you're going through. So we really want to teach the brain that we can go as far as we possibly can with this new range of motion. Now, the big thing is with mobility, you need to work on it day in and day out consistently. Because going back tomorrow, you may check yourself again and you may just be back to square one, which is totally normal. But for you to make changes, you need to spend 10 to 15 minutes a day working on mobility at least every day for at least a few weeks to start to make some small changes. It's going to be those small changes over time that really add up to improve your mobility. Okay, so follow that 3-step process. Just work on relaxing some of those muscles. Then we're going to go into the motion that we need to improve, and then we're going to try to maintain that by using our muscles actively throughout the range of motion. If the last one that we just did starts to get easy against gravity, you can put an ankle weight on or put a band between your ankles. That will start to make it a little bit harder and actually help the exercise last even longer. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I really hope that you use that 3-step process to really work on improving your hip mobility. Again, hip mobility is great for the golf swing. We need it, and we want to avoid as much back pain as possible. And we also just want to be able to hit the ball further, right? So this is going to help you kill a lot of birds with just one stone, okay? So try this out. If you guys haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Write some comments down below if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out to me. The contact info is in the description. But there's going to be continued videos that are coming out to help improve your body so you can improve your golf game and be your best on and off the course, all right? Because when you feel great, you golf great.